Hi, Jenni here, and during Easter I went to Riga. Basically, me and my friends from high school, Aure, who has been on this channel before, and Anna, wanted to mark the 10-year anniversary of us graduating from high school. We were thinking about different places that we could travel to, something that could be affordable for obvious reasons. I'm unemployed. And when there was a new flight from Oulu to Riga opened, like last month, we thought that that would be a great fit. I've never been to Riga and it seems very fascinating. So we arrived there on Good Friday, and my first impressions at 7 a.m. was that it was very calm, obviously very early in the day. After breakfast, we just walked around. It was just so beautiful there. I don't know what I was expecting from Riga. Maybe something similar to Tallinn, and there were some similarities, but I feel like Riga had its own unique side to it. I really loved how modern buildings and then medieval older buildings were living in harmony. So we walked around a lot. We visited a couple of churches, we sat at parks. It was really, really beautiful. The weather was sunny, a bit chilly, but not too much so. And it was Easter, so we could see Easter in the places that we visited. For example, there was this vigil or like a march or a parade where these priests were carrying a cross, and then a lot of people, so many people were walking behind it, and then they stopped at this square and then prayed and talked, and it was really interesting to witness. And there were so many beautiful monuments and buildings around Riga. Again, we sat at many parks, and it's still early spring, so the grounds and the trees were just beginning to look a little bit green. So I just kept thinking that it would have been really beautiful to visit Riga in the summertime. So we spent most of Friday just walking around, walking the city center and the old town and eating good food. It was a very chill first day. On the second day, we left early on to the old city, and we came across this beautiful stationery shop. They had beautiful notebooks and other stationery stuff, and the atmosphere was really, really wonderful, very bookish, very beautiful. And I got Joel a small notebook from there. If I had the budget, I would have bought myself something as well. It was a bit expensive, but they seemed very well handcrafted notebooks and so on. At this point, it was still very sunny but windy in Riga. Then we went to the Museum of Occupation of Latvia. This was something that I had asked if we could visit beforehand already, because I am so interested in history and wanted to learn more about this specific history. And obviously it was a very harrowing and heavy experience. It obviously talked about when Latvia was under the Soviet Union occupation and just how regular life was impacted by it in Latvia. And I learned a lot, and they had so many interesting displays and personal items from Latvians. Also, a guided tour began right before we stepped into the museum. So we kind of got to hear the guided tour, even though we didn't sign up for it. So that also gave a lot of insight to the museum and that era. At that point, it started to rain a lot. So while earlier in that day we saw some beautiful Easter, I don't want to say displays maybe, there was this beautiful one with like colorful pieces of fabric. I'll put a picture here, which was so beautiful and lovely. But yeah, then it started to rain, and we just tried to quickly find somewhere to eat, and we came across this, I think it was like a lunch restaurant where the lunch was only €6.50, and we had a really lovely meal there, very affordable and very nice atmosphere there. But since it was raining so hard and we had already spent a couple of hours at the old town and at the museum. We decided to go back to the hotel at this point. And then in the evening we had booked a spa at our hotel, like an appointment for us, and it was really fun. We were a bit hesitant about it because it was quite a small spa. There was one jacuzzi and then like a bigger tub. There was a Finnish sauna and then a steam sauna. But we ended up having really lovely time there, very relaxing time. I love swimming so much. I mean, there wasn't a lot of swimming to be done there because the pools were so small, but just being in the water was very calming, especially after getting rained on earlier during the day. I do have to say, one fellow tourist was on his phone in the jacuzzi, and I'm just like, why? Please take a moment to just rest without screens, my God. Then we woke up to a very sunny Easter Sunday, and we spent the day at the Ethnographic Open Air Museum of Latvia. We took the bus from city center to the museum area, and it was packed. It had a lot of people who went to visit. There was an Easter celebration there and like a market, so it was really, really lovely, but we didn't expect so many people to be there. Thankfully, it was a good weather, so we just walked around, looked at the different old buildings and learned about the history. There were some lovely performances of traditional Latvian songs that were really lovely. We pretty much walked around the whole area of the open air museum, which it was a huge place and it was all in this forest. And again, it was a beautiful sunny day, but very, very windy. We also climbed up this high hill to see this old building there. Well, it was a windmill, but the climb was really, really hard and had its, after effects when I got endo symptoms later on. But it was really, really beautiful there, and I love being in the forest, and it was really special to be in a forest in Latvia. We had these savory pancakes for lunch there, and those were really lovely. And that took most of our day. We were there for several hours, much longer than I expected. I bought some souvenirs from there. I bought these wooden spoons for me, Joel, and my mom. In the evening, we tried to go to the Riga food market, but it was already closed. Then after resting for a little bit, we went out for dinner to this really charming small restaurant that had like Latvian cuisine. And while the place was really, really lovely and very atmospheric, but we had to wait for our food for a really, really long time. I think up to an hour for our appetizers, and then from the moment we ordered, it took 2 hours for our mains to arrive. I don't know, it seemed that maybe they had some issues in the back in the kitchen, but it was a bit frustrating to wait for that long. And when I get hungry, I get bitchy. But it was a really lovely salmon that I ate, and it was nice to eat like local cuisine. But yeah, waiting that long for a meal, I don't like it. I did not like it. We left on Easter Monday, but because our flights were so late in the day that we still had a full day essentially in Riga, we went to the food market that we couldn't go on Sunday. It was sweet. We didn't buy anything, but it was nice to walk around and look around what they were offering there. Different desserts, different meats, and so on. We visited a bookshop that was in the Origo shopping mall. We actually visited it on Friday as well, but then I wanted to visit again because I wanted a specific book that I had seen there. I'll have a book haul later on. So we went there, absolutely loved it. Then we walked around old city of Riga, and this is when my endometriosis cramps got really, really bad. I felt like I was being stabbed while walking around. We went to a really charming but expensive cafe so that I could take a medicine and sit down for a bit. The cafe was really, really lovely, but it also was on a very good spot, so that was very much reflected in their prices. But it had a really lovely atmosphere again. Like I said in the beginning, I really loved how Riga, or what we saw of Riga, it combined the old medieval buildings with modern buildings, and it just looked so beautiful. And I loved that the architecture was really whimsical at times. I loved that there were these small figures or statues on the roofs of these old buildings. It looked really beautiful and wonderful and had a really good energy to it. While we were at the cafe, the weather cleared. Oh, did I mention it was raining? It was raining, but the weather cleared for a moment and we walked around a little bit more. It's such a beautiful city. And then we went and had lunch. After that, we pretty much ended up going back to the airport. I just wanted to make this video highlighting Riga because I was so pleasantly surprised by it. It's not like I was going with low expectations, but I just loved the energy and how peaceful and beautiful it was there that I wanted to highlight it on a video. I just had such a great time with Anna and Aure. And everything went so smoothly and we did so many lovely things and ate really good food. I would like to go to Riga again, maybe in the summer, and kind of see how the weather impacts how everything looks there. Alright, so let's move on to the book haul. I bought 3 books, and then can I just say, compared to Finland, books were really affordable there. Obviously, I know a lot of things impact the price of things that are sold, of course, but in Finland books are especially expensive because our government decided to raise the VTA on books. It's much harder to buy books nowadays, so I was very pleasantly surprised by the prices there. So first up, I bought George Eliot's Silas Marner. I loved Middlemarch by George Eliot and I want to read more from her, and in this book we follow Silas Marner, and the book is set in the agricultural town of Ravellow in the English countryside. And Silas Marner has been exiled from a religious community because of a wrongful accusations of theft. And then he ends up working day to day as a weaver, hoarding his money and living a lonely life as a recluse. It is only when his money is stolen and a small orphan girl, Eppie, appears that Silas's fortunes start to change and he truly begins to regain his faith in life. Sounds really, really intriguing. I love George Eliot's writing, and this was only $3.50. So in Finland, these editions, in 2016, they were €3.90. I remember that vividly, but now these are €7, which is not a lot, but only $3.50 for a book is a good deal. Next up is Johanna Spyri Heidi. And this tells the story of a little orphan called Heidi who is sent to live with her grandfather in his remote house in the Swiss Alps. And then she loves being there, but she ends up moving to Frankfurt and her life changes there. Again, this was $3.50 and I've never heard of this author or of this book before, but when I read the back cover, I just felt this calmness and really sweet, lovely atmosphere. And I became intrigued, so I got this one as well. And the last one, this was probably the biggest surprise for me. Yesteryear by Carol Claire Berg. I already saw this on Good Friday being sold at the store, but this was released on 7th of April, so way before it was even officially released. This was available in Riga. And here in Finland, new books cost a lot of money. I'm pretty sure that this would be sold in my local bookstore at like €28. But in Riga, it was $15.95. So what a deal. This tells the story of Natalie, who is a tradwife influencer. But when she faces some allegations, she suddenly wakes up way back in history. And her family seems similar enough that they could be her family, but it's not this. Everything has changed just a little bit, and it follows kind of like how did Natalie become a trad wife, and if she really even believed in that lifestyle. And I already read this book and I will share my thoughts later in a different video. But what a good deal. A really, really fascinating book. And I'm really glad I bought it. That was my recap of my trip to Riga. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if they happen to be watching, Anna and Aure, thank you so much for the lovely trip. If you want to see more bookish posts from me, follow me on my Instagram account, jenskosmos. As you can tell, I am going through a flu, so there hasn't been a lot of bookish updates recently. But I'll get back to it eventually. Alright, see you in the next one. Bye!